I would offer a lot of thanks to this community that we live in, that we're a part of, for receiving us, our WDUN, over these past 75 years. It's quite a feat to be around for 75 years. As I like to say, we've met a lot of payrolls over that period of time.
If you go back to my time, you'd look at people like Jim Hartley, who was the morning mayor. He was actually mayor of Gainesville on several occasions. He was on the city council. So he had a major impact on bringing the level of our station up in visibility, certainly. Oh golly, Ken Stanford in the news department. When I started here, we were a news department of 1. And then we became a news department of 1.5. I was the half.
You've got to have people that are committed to doing the job at a high level, you know, and doing it every day. And at the end of the day, we've had that here the entire time I've been here. And you know, I can think back to some of the people that I've worked with over the years and people that I learned from, and that's always been here, you know, at least at some level of the company. And so that, I think, is the most important part of the puzzle, if you will.
So what I loved about being a part of Jacobs Media is it was a family-owned company. And as I made that transition from being back at work and developing this radio show, there were lots of people that helped me along the way. Salespeople would sometimes pick my kid up from school. Jay Jacobs one time in his conference room laid out a piece of drawing paper and colored with my 2-year-old daughter so that I could finish doing my show. It is this family atmosphere, but also the level of professionalism. People like Ken Stanford, who was just an amazing news director, who taught me how to ask questions. You know, I'm a great talker. I've been that way my whole life. But he taught me how to ask an open-ended question that would get the best answer out of somebody. So that's what really being a part of Jacobs Media has brought to me.
You know, you've got to create an environment that makes people want to work and work for the business and know that there's one mission in mind. And keeping that mission in mind, I think, is the most important thing you can do. Besides making sure that everybody is happy, that's hard to do. But when people trust the process and trust what everybody's doing, I think that the result is usually pretty special.
Well, when you start thinking about the impact that a radio station would have on the community, what you immediately probably think about is, you know, the news. And, you know, specifically I think about like weather events. I could tell you 100 specific situations, but whether it's a snow day, whether it's a hurricane blowing through Hall County, Georgia, that we needed to get word out, and that life was different, whether it was COVID. WDUN has always been there and just asked the question, how can we help? How can we support what this community needs to know?
Where we've had the impact is when we've had things like in 1998, when a tornado ripped apart North Hall, and we were live on the air as it was happening, and people were calling us and telling us, and we were telling them what was going on. And for the people whose power was out, but they had battery-operated radios, you know, so many of those people told us later, I'm so glad that you guys were there just talking. We were so afraid and so alone, and it just felt like we had somebody who was looking out for us and a friend. That's where we make an impact, because we were informing them on what was going on, and then later on where the aid stations were and how they could get help and when the power is going to be back and all of those things. And unfortunately having to do the stories on the bodies that were lost, the people that were killed. That's where you have the impact.
It's pretty impressive to me, the commitment to scope that this organization has had the entire time I've been here, and even well before I got here. I mean, you're talking about a company of our size covering an area of the state that spans from Lawrenceville up to the state line of North Carolina. It's a lot of places, it's a lot of people, and to be committed to covering that region the way that we do for a company of our size is pretty unmatched when you look across the state of Georgia.
Really and truly, it's kind of the gold standard. Back when I was in high school, it was one of the places that if you wanted to be in radio, or even if you just wanted to listen to games or to the scoreboard or to any of their sports programming, you always kind of went to Jacobs Media. And, you know, personally me, I always thought it was kind of the gold standard, just being in radio in this area. So And all they've done over the years is just expand what they do in sports. And I think we really take pride in covering high school athletics and promoting the kids. And that's the number one reason that we're here, is to promote the athletes in our area and give folks something that's comprehensive to read, up to date, and timely. And then our radio coverage just takes it even above that.
My father instilled in me that you give back to your community. You don't always just take from your community, so staying involved in whether it's a nonprofit or a chamber of commerce or a church or whatever, you want to give back to your community as a way of telling the community it matters.
Something I've always heard from my father, from my grandfather, is like local matters, and nobody else is going to cover this local news. And if we can be the voice of reason for all the news that is North Georgia, I think that's very important and a very serious job.
When you look at the radio station or listen to it, so figuratively look at it with your ears, you should see a reflection of the community. You should see yourself in there. You should see the people around you in that mirror. And that's what we are, is we're a mirror of the community. And that's why we're still here 75 years later, because our slogan says always here, always local. And it's true on both points, but we are local. We are Gainesville, North Georgia. We know our audience, and we inform them in good times and bad times. That's why we're still here, because we're still a part of the community and intend to be so.
What I loved about it, that it was family owned and it was right here in this community. And I've always been impressed by the fact we do 24/7 news here right out of this community in Gainesville, because you really don't get that anywhere else.
I've lived long enough to see this change from news being facts to news being propaganda. And one of the things that I just have a great appreciation for is WDUN reports the news and lets people make up their own mind about how they feel about things. It's been that way since I've been here, and it hadn't changed.
With WDUN, you just see, it just seems tried and true, and that consistency is just something that you look for out of the local coverage.
I think the reason that happens is Jacobs Media has a core value. I can sense that they're dedicated to the advancement of the community, they're dedicated to the advancement of the people who live here, and they want a service and a delivery of a product that has high integrity and high honesty.
As a community bank, we wanted to advertise with the community, and we couldn't think of a better source than WDUN. It's really helped us to continue to grow. We have continued to grow since 2005. We're now about a $740 million bank, really because of advertising in the local market through WDUN.
Over the years that I've been here, I have been able to see clients that have grown their businesses, that have established their businesses through the media outlets that we have. Many of them have told me that the messaging that they can put out over radio or the visual aspects that they use through Access WDUN have really given them the exposure to their customers that they are looking for, which has in part brought them profitability.
I wouldn't be doing all these ads if they didn't work, because we spend a lot of money. But it's a drop in the bucket as to what it brings us. So we're glad WDUN is there for us.
Well, I'm excited about the 75th anniversary and, quote, returning to our roots, and where we're building our studio downtown on Spring Street in the beautiful Gainesville Renaissance building. Downtown, they can look through the window and actually experience live radio happening.
WDUN's taking the last bay there and broadcasting for there is icing on the cake of that renaissance. And it is bringing the heartbeat of the community to the square and broadcasting daily.
You know, a long time ago, people sat around the campfire and they told stories. And that campfire became the radio. But that's the way it's always been. We're still the community campfire, and people come here to exchange ideas, to laugh, to cry together, and to find out what's the news, what's going on. And when I started to get into radio, I picked radio because I enjoyed it. I always listened. I loved to hear the jocks. So when I got in, I found it's a lot of work, but I found it was a lot of fun. And when it's something you love to do, it's really not work.
WDUN is a really special place, and it's a special voice, and I want to wish them a very happy 75th anniversary.
Yeah, the legacy of my grandfather starting this first has been something that I've always heard about and always grew up around, but never really knew what it meant. Now that I'm in the business and seeing how this community operates, it makes a lot of sense. You know, this business has had highs and lows like any other business, and I think that the future forward is just immense with what we can do with this growing community.
You know, if you don't do things with heart, you know, they're not worth doing. And we've given a lot of heart into this business.